All right. Welcome to Grow This Personal. I'm so excited, Shawn, to have this conversation with you. I followed your works for the last couple of years now, 2 to 3 years, since I came to Canada. And I've been someone who is very passionate about personal growth, but also taking responsibility for the outcomes of your life.
Yeah.
And when I was doing my research on who are those people who are actually in that space, who are taking ownership, who are leading the new economy that we have now, and we're going to talk a lot about. I have a lot of questions for you, by the way. And
And
I
vice
found you.
versa.
I found you, and I was like, man, who is this? Who is this? Given, I mean, your talks are different. They're unique. Like you come from a place um of disruption, basically. Like you don't go traditional. So before I go into our conversations and asking questions, I want you to talk to us about yourself. My
Yeah.
audience probably haven't heard about you. I have audience all the way from Nigeria.
Yeah.
I have from Liberia. Quite interesting demographic. I think the last one I saw was this new country. I haven't heard about them in a while. I just heard about it recently. Was it Seychelles or something like that, or Rhode
Yeah.
Island or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah.
It was
Seashells.
an
Yeah.
interesting country, right? So, talk to us about who is Shawn Kanungo.
Well, first of all, I want to say this. Thank you so much for having me on. You've been putting the work into this podcast. So before you learn anything about me, just subscribe, rate, review, follow this particular podcast wherever you are. Spotify. I listen to this on Spotify, or if you will go on YouTube, give the man some love on YouTube. You're doing the dishes, you're doing something. Just like give this man some love, but he's putting in the work. And listen, we're gonna get. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to go huge in Nigeria. I'm ready for me to blow up in Nigeria. Both of us, we're gonna blow up in Nigeria. No, so
Oh,
honored
that's
to be
that's
on
a
the
good
call.
one. My people are gonna be so glad to hear that, because I'm in Canada now. I moved in Canada to Canada I think that's 2015. But I still touch base with my people at home. I still do content that serves them, and also
Yeah.
yeah, and great to hear that you have something cooking up. Hopefully, we can get to see.
Yeah. So, I mean, a little bit of background myself. So I'm an innovation strategist, a disruption strategist. I help organizations with this topic of, how do you go off and create value in new ways? How do you ultimately go off and disrupt yourself? I spent 12 years at a management consulting company called Deloitte. Was working with some of the leading organizations there. And then I sort of broke off about 5 years ago and started my own thing where I speak and advise with companies and leaders when it comes to innovation. And I wrote a book that came out. It's called The Bold Ones, which is actually applying the idea of innovation, disruption, applying it to the individual. Like, how do you unpack? How do you become a disruptor? Oh, let's go. Let's
Hey, look at look at
go.
look at look at the look at the highlighting. I just
Okay. Okay.
he
Well, if
arrived
you're
at seven
listening,
o'clock. Like my delivery guy was like, I was like, what? Where is this? We're gonna come here. Like he came in
it,
I think 7:15 p.m. yesterday. I was like, I can't wait to get in. And oh man,
so if you're listening to this on your drive, what just happened is Jamaica, he just pulled up the book. He just pulled up the book of The Bold Ones and he's highlighting it, and that's why I reacted the way that I did. So first of all, thank you so much. I'm a new author. It's my first debut book, and it's been overwhelming to see how many people are sharing this book, are buying this book, are talking about this book. So it's a surreal feeling that I have never felt before. So the fact that you have the book in your hands means a lot, because that is my brain sort of on your desk right now, right? To
Mhm.
have the physical embodiment of my brain on your desk is an insane idea. So I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
You know what? When I saw the title, it spoke to me. I don't even have to go into the book. The title itself speaks for itself.
So
And
why tell me why? Because I know you've been on this personal growth journey for a long time, and you've been trying to shake some trees and disrupt. So tell me why the title resonated with you.
I mean, speaking of, for example, the title of this podcast is Growth is Personal. And I've always believed that when it comes to growth, advancing any cause, or living a life that is fulfilled, it's a personal journey. As much as you have to bring people along the way by say mentorship or by partnership and stuff, it's a personal responsibility. But it can only happen when you are bold enough to challenge the status quo, right? I mean, I've had so many experiences, especially coming to Canada. I remember one time I was in an interview, and one of the hiring manager asked the question, say, "Hey, Emeka, where do you see yourself in 3 years?" Which is a typical question you ask. And I told him that in 3 years I should be in management, otherwise I'll be out of here. That was, I mean, he was like, "Okay, wait, hold on. You don't say such in interviews, right?" And he said, "Well, let me walk you through the org chart. This is how it works. I've been here for 7 years. I haven't even got into what you're trying to achieve right now in 3 years." I said, "Well, that's what I intend to do." Right. So it takes bold to disrupt anything. You have to be bold. And for me, going in there, I said that's the goal. And it happened within less than 3 years. In 2 years, I was already the management assistant,
wow.
But I had to leave the company because that was not, I was done there. I had to move to somewhere else. But the book spoke to me, the bold one. But again, when I was thinking about what we're going to talk about, one word kept coming to my mind, and that is indispensable. I never knew that your subtitle has a word in this. I'm like, oh my goodness. how is this? So for me, this is I don't just buy books. I have a library of books, and sometimes I do my research before I buy books. But when I haven't followed you, but when I saw this book, I mean, I had to order. I mean, I did the express because it had to come in. I wanted it to come in before the podcast. So well, yeah, it's a lot. It means a lot to me to see. I wrote a book. Yours has blown up. The first book more than mine. Mine has blown up. And my title then was "Stand Out or Get Lost." That's the title of my book.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that if you don't stand out, you're gonna be lost in the crowd, right? Some people say that the title was kind of harsh. Are you telling us to get lost? I'm like, no, but it's the truth. If you don't stand out, you'll be lost in the crowd, right? So back to you, Shawn. Before I continue.
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, you talked about the idea of indispensable. To me, the idea of indispensable is like, how do you create so much value that the organization or the people around you are like, we cannot get rid of this person. This person is creating so much value, disproportionate value than anybody else, that they're just unstoppable. They're bold. And so that's the whole idea of indispensable. Is I really I didn't want a book where it was just for entrepreneurs and founders and creators. I wanted to write a book for the folks that don't want to be just founders and entrepreneurs. They're working within an organization. They're working within middle management. And I believe that in order to succeed within an organization, that you have to be bold. You can't be mediocre, because that's the most dangerous place to be. And so the idea of indispensable, means a lot to me.
Awesome. Shawn, before we continue, I just want to do I like to do a screenshot of this conversation and you on the screen.
Sure.
It's rare you have a big shot like this on the podcast. So, man, I just want to capture every moment I can.
Absolutely. Let's take it.
Okay. All right. Done that. Okay. So I want to go in. Who was Shawn 12 years ago?
Yeah. I think, 12 years ago was a difficult transition for me. My father passed away. I ran his accounting firm. I sold it, and I was transitioning 12 years ago into management consulting and, understanding the idea of the strategy and innovation. That's what I really wanted to start doing. And so I made the pivot 12 years ago from accounting to consulting, management consulting. And, I spent a decade within management consulting after that. So I was really 12 years ago, I was sort of in the mindset of growth. I wanted to push my career. I wanted to do things that I was passionate about. And I was relentless about trying to achieve that and to get to where I wanted to be.
Awesome. Now, if you were to walk me through your career journey, what would you say are, number one, instrumental to where you are today? What and who were instrumental? Who has been instrumental to who you are today?
Yeah. I would say, number one, it was, I mentioned this, that my father passed away in 2008, and he was running this large accounting firm. He had over 200 clients, and I had to take this literally the day after that he died. I had to take over his firm. I had no idea how to take over a company and run it. And, so we successfully sold it. And to me, that was an awakening, because before that, I was coasting. I was relaxing. I was playing ball hockey with my friends. I would go out and just do the normal things that, people right out of school would do. You now had money and you're spending it, and you didn't have kids, and you were doing things that, new grads would do. And that really shifted my perspective of life, because, it's interesting, like, when somebody passes away, I don't know if this happens in your culture, but in my culture, like, there's a rush of people that come to your house. It's like full. There's so many people. Like, you don't even get to mourn, because you're just like helping. You're getting coffee and water, and then only after 2 weeks do people trickle out, and then the house is empty. And at that point, it kind of you kind of have this realization that, listen, everyone moves on, and it's actually inspiring. It's inspiring to say that, at the end of the day, people don't really give a shit about you at the end of the day, even in death. I mean, they're thinking about you, but they go on, they go on their lives. And so it was a reminder to me to, like, live every day like it was my last. And since that day, I literally changed my life. I changed my trajectory completely. I only wanted to pursue things that I was truly passionate about doing. And so my father was definitely inspiration for me. And even in death, even more of an inspiration. And so I love my father. I love what he gave to my family. And I learned a lot from that experience. And I think along the way, what has helped me the most is not actually the job. Everybody has a particular job, a career that they have, but I always found that what gave me the most value was my side hustles. I was creating, create a film group with my friends. I was creating apps and had a mobile app company. And so all these experiences, I was able to understand how to do things on my own. To me, that was my MBA, and being able to push myself outside of work whether it was my creative or film or my understanding of a customer experience or user experience or user interface design. All these different experiences helped me at my current job. And so that to me was the MBA, was like doing things outside of work. And so, it just goes to show that life is just about, just taking irrational decisions and stepping outside of your comfort zone and learning new skills.
Awesome. I mean, that speaks clearly, because for me, that has been my life. Even right now, I work full time, but I do this because I understand that the real essence of life is about expressing yourself to the fullest, and which means that beyond the skill that you currently have that helps you function in your job, there are other things within you, there are other gifts and talents within you that need expression. And if you don't find a way to express it, then you're not truly living. So for me, someone asked me, how do you manage, podcasts? You write content, you're working on this, program, you're doing master class, and you're still working full time, and you're still, you have family. I'm like, that is life. I mean, as long as you're not burnt out, you have to keep, and I like the word you use. You say that you want to be live every day as if it was your last, and I think that's really critical to living life to the fullest, and and making an impact in our world. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask this question around, because when it comes to personal growth, there are certain foundations or fundamentals that help us, grow, and either it's exponentially or grow at a certain pace. But what are the values or the beliefs that are foundation to your personal growth?
Oh man, it's such an interesting question. I could unpack that in so many different ways. My belief is that growth is really about continuing to find this idea of secrets. In the book, I have this chapter on secrets, and secrets are simply truths that are waiting to be found, waiting to be discovered. And in your life, the only way of finding secrets is to explore. It's to step outside of your own bubble. It's to learn about different industries. It's to have a perspective of what other people are thinking or reading. And so what's fascinating is that the more that you explore outside of your company, your industry, of yourself, the actual more things that you find about yourself, and the more that you can grow, which is the paradox, because it's like the more that you discover about other things or explore outside of your comfort zone, the more you discover about yourself. But it's true. And so my whole idea for personal growth is to just go out and discover more secrets about you, about the world, about others, and then you will find more things about yourself.
More secret. That's interesting. So what mindset shift did you embrace that has changed your career trajectory? So I understand that mindset is really key. A lot of times, because part of my audience are immigrants as well, who are in a different country, different part of the world. And one thing that people, when they come to a new country, is that they begin to look at physical things that can help them move the needle, or move on in their career or growth and stuff like that. They look externally, right? But oftentimes it's always a case of mindset, that you're here in this new country. It doesn't mean that all that you've done, all your experiences, is all in the trash, and then you have to all look for something or look for a certificate, which is, education is not a bad thing, but having the right mindset is very key to to your growth. So what mindset shift did you have to embrace to begin to do the things you do right now? You're speaking on disruption, you're speaking on innovation and world stages. What mindset should have to change over the years for you to be able to take on what you do right now?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I'd like to get your perspective too on this. To me, I think disruption is actually a mindset. I think the idea of disruption is somebody or something, someone coming out of nowhere and changing the status quo. And having a disruption mindset is not only of you helping to change the status quo of the organization or industry that you are in, and constantly thinking about, what is new and, what is going to upend this particular industry. But it actually is about disrupting yourself. So it's like, how do I ultimately get myself fired before somebody else fires me? It's the idea of how do I automate what I'm doing? How do I outsource the things that I don't like? How do I double down on the things that I'm good at and then be able to go down the mountain again? Like, we're so good at going up the mountain. We're so good at achieving what we want to achieve. But having a disruption mindset is actually about going down the mountain again. It's about being able to reinvent, reimagine, replenish, and then going up maybe even a higher mountain. There's an old Haitian proverb that says, beyond mountain, there are mountains. It's the idea that we always think that the mountain right ahead of us, that's the only mountain to climb. That's it. but really there are millions of mountains ahead, and they could be even bigger. And so a disruption mindset is not only like killing and dominating and, you know, doing these amazing things in your particular field, industry, practice, craft, but it's also about disrupting yourself. But I'd love to ask you, you know, you've been interviewing some amazing folks, you know, over the last bit, and, you know, asking this question too, like what has, you know, what's your mindset today, or maybe even where has your mindset shifted to where it is today?
I mean, when you were talking, two things came to my mind when it comes to disruption and the mindset that we have to embrace. And one of the things I think, you know, a lot of people would not admit today is the fact that it takes humility. I think the disruption comes from a place of the humility, whereby you're willing to, from this high level, come down, because you have to. You understand that to be able to change some certain things, you have to come from your high horse and begin to learn the ropes again, because you want to reveal a certain part of yourself. And I think that is where, you know, I always lean into that. I don't know it all. Disruption means that you have to keep that mindset of learning on the road, and humble, you know, humble in the process, because if you're not humble, you'll be in your own way, right? Like, because I see a lot of times when people, you know, you try to change something and people say things like, this is how it has always been done. When I hear that thing, one thing that comes to mind is that someone is not trying to, the ego is in the way, because you feel like if you let go and you try to embrace what they're saying, they're going to see you as someone who maybe doesn't know it all, who is less competent, and they begin to shield that idea of this is how it's always been done and it's working. Let's keep doing it that way. I think I even saw something like that in your book. So for me, the mindset shift that has to happen is that you have to come down from your high horse, like you're saying. Humility is very key when it comes to this disruption.
Yeah, no, and in the book I talk about the idea of, you know, status and how status plays a role in this idea of disruption. You know, status is amazing, by the way. Status is the reason why we have, you know, so many amazing innovations, why we've conquered land, why we have, you know, we build a better society. We want something that somebody else has. Status is great, but status is also the thing that holds us back. It's wrapped around our identity, our expertise, and by disrupting your own status, means having that humility that you talked about. It's about placing the ego aside and being able to be open to new ideas, to new people, to new things. And so you definitely have to drop your status in order to continue innovating.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about vulnerability, because I think also that's another piece to innovation, to disrupting ourselves, to becoming indispensable. Talk to us about what's your idea of vulnerability, and oftentimes people are not comfortable with that topic. People are not comfortable to be vulnerable. But what is your thoughts around vulnerability and the capacity to use that as a tool to disrupt ourselves or to even grow personally?
Yeah, no, vulnerability is such a powerful word. I believe that the most innovative leaders today are the most vulnerable. To me, vulnerability is the ability for somebody, a leader, somebody at the highest status, to say, I don't know. It's somebody to say, you know, help me. It's somebody that can say, I don't understand this. You know, being a leader today, that's a very uncomfortable position to be. That's about vulnerability. You know, back in the day, I think we had this idea of what leadership is that you have all the ideas, that it's a top-down mentality, that you have authority. And today, I believe that the things are fundamentally changing. Things are moving so fast. Technology is on an exponential scale. The world is moving quickly, and it's impossible. It's impossible to know everything. It's impossible to understand what the best decision is going to be. Listen, I'm in the innovation space. My job is to understand what's happening in the innovation space. And I can tell you like 0.1% of what's happening in the innovation space because it's moving so quickly. Who am I to tell you, what's something that's happening this moment? We're on this podcast and some game-changing thing is happening. So as a leader today, you have to be able to allow the people around you to and empower the people around you to run with their ideas, to hear them out. And that takes vulnerability to make it happen.
Now, you're coming from the place of a leader. Now, let's talk about someone who is now at the ground floor and how they can also tap into that vulnerability to be able to express themselves. Like, how do they go about it? For example, you have someone, say, for example, who's on the sales floor. He is a store clerk, for example, and to be able to express vulnerability oftentimes may seem like he is not or she is not competent. How do they manage vulnerability such that they are not they're not seen as less competent and still be able to express themselves to the fullest?
I think we need to reframe how we look at vulnerability, especially when it comes to that person that's on the ground floor that's learning things anew. I think if we repurpose that to say curiosity, if we repurpose that to say hunger, that if you go to the people around you and say, hey, listen, I want to be at the best. I want to do this the best that I can. I want to learn new ways of doing things, and I want to learn from people around me. So I'm going to ask really dumb questions, and being upfront and saying that expectation and showing people that you are hungry and then you're curious and that you want to do unbelievable things within your organization. People will be willing to help, and I think we just need to reframe that vulnerability into curiosity. And I think that's the best way of sort of navigating a career. And people will be like, oh, look, Sally is hungry. She's asking all these questions and I can see that she's making those improvements. I can see that she's, asking the right questions. And I think it comes from a good place. And you'll find that more and more people are willing to help.
Yeah. Okay. I stumbled on, I was listening to one of your videos or watching one of your videos, and you talked about innovation capital. And that was very interesting to me. But I want to bring that to a personal level, not just an organizational level now. How can individuals, professionals build innovation capital? Because we know human capital, being able to develop human capital, developing your strengths, your talents, and your competencies and skills. But when it comes to innovation capital, especially in the economy that we're in, and which we're going to talk as we go on, how can professionals develop innovation capital?
Yeah, such a great point. And thanks for deep diving into these videos. I think innovation capital is such an important concept that many people don't know about. Innovation capital is your ability for others to believe in your ideas and then thereby unlocking more resources in order to make your ideas happen. To me, innovation capital is actually a muscle. And to me, I just want to make it really simple. Listen, the more that you can do hard things, and the more that you put yourself in a position to do hard things, not only are you going to convince other people, your teammates, your stakeholders, the people around you that you can do hard things, but you're going to convince yourself. And what's going to happen is that you are going to be creating this muscle to go off to do even bigger and better things. And so if you want to build innovation capital, you have to start by doing things that are different, that will create value in new ways, and they can be very incremental. And what you will find when you start doing that, you're like, oh, wait, I just did this. What else can I do more? And it's a simple idea. You go to the gym, no one's going to expect you to, lift 800 pounds right off the get. You have to go to the gym every single day and try to create that muscle when it comes to innovation. And the more that you flex the muscle and build and try harder things and more complex things, you will convince other people and yourself that you're able to do that. And so that's just the idea of innovation capital. I think it's, you've seen this with the most innovative people in the world. They start with something very small, and then they're able to move up the ladder and work on more complex projects and do more innovative things because of that.
When you were talking, I wanted to just, you to elaborate more on this. So can innovation capital be done within an organization as an individual, for example, or do you have to be outside the organization to be able to express that, to build an innovation capital? Because for me, it looks like when you're within an organization, and you're trying to innovate, maybe you have the, kind of organization where innovation is not necessarily embraced, right? And maybe you're trying to change things and people want things to be the way it is, right? Do you then have to begin to go outside to do some stuff so that you can begin to build that, that capital outside the organization?
I think ultimately when you're building innovation capital, you most likely you'll have to go outside of your own knowledge domain or your own your own expertise within your organization and see what else is happening. I'll give you a really simple example. I was working with this guy. He was like in the finance department, and he was an innovative person. And he came to me, he said, "Hey, listen, I love what you're talking about when it comes to innovation. I want to do this within our company." And so what I helped him do is we started with a very small experiment within their finance group. Very small experiment using this technology that the company has never used. I remember going into the boardroom and talking to his his leaders around this particular technology, and they almost kicked me out of the room because they asked me who else in our industry is doing this. But later on we were able to convince them to make this very, 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 very small experiment within their finance group. And by making a very small experiment, he was able to convince his teams and his bosses that this was able to work. And because of that, they were able to start this small experiment in other groups. And ultimately what this guy was able to do was he was able to build innovation capital, right? Starting with a very small experiment, people are like, oh, this worked. And now he's able to do more things. He's able to apply this idea, this technology to another group. And then he started to apply other technologies and he started to build more innovation capital, and people trusted him even more with trying out these new and crazy ideas. And later on, he started leading a lot of their innovation initiatives. And so it just goes to show that to build innovation capital within an organization, yes, he went outside. Yes, we spoke with each other. Yes, he took a technology which was outside of his industry. But at the end of the day, it was him being able to run these experiments and convince other people that he was able to do it. And so that is the power of innovation capital. And I think you can do it within an organization.
Great. Now, let's go to this other section here about the creator economy, and you have it in your book here. But I want to ask: can career professionals become creators? Because there's this, idea that it's a creator. To become a creator, you probably have to do it full time. You have to be able to, have be creative, know how to use these tools and stuff like that. How can career professionals leverage the creator economy? Because I think it's very important right now that to live off to our full self and become indispensable, we have to also tap into this creator economy. So how can career professionals position themselves to tap into the creator economy, or how can they become one?
I love that you're asking this question because, the creator economy is something that everyone talks about. People going off and creating content on these slow social platforms, and, they're doing something that they're passionate about. And they're always talking about people that are outside of the organization. I believe that you can tap into the creator economy within an organization. I actually recommend that every single person on the planet should create their own IP, their own stamp within an organization. So it's the idea of how do you develop and declare independence within an organization, and that is taking a particular asset, to taking a particular IP and putting your likeness, your name, your personality to what that is. Because the best way of creating a brand within an organization is to create something that is truly uniquely you, that is related to your gifts. I'll give you an example. In the book, I talk about Mary Meeker. She works for she's not a part of the creator economy. She works within an organization. So at Morgan Stanley, she created an asset called the Internet Trends Report. And so she would share this 200-page PowerPoint deck internally and externally about what was happening around the internet. And that became her calling. People started to associate her with the internet trends. She then was known as the queen of the internet. And she's still working for somebody, but she created a unique piece of IP for herself. And she was able to carry that along, not only within, she worked at Morgan Stanley, then she worked at Klein Perkins, and then she started her own thing called Bond Capital. And she was able to carry that piece of IP the entire way. So I believe that within an organization that you should be finding some piece of IP. Now, it can be an asset. It could be like a PowerPoint deck. It could be a process. It could be a brand. It could be an event. It could be a newsletter. It could be whatever it could be within an organization, something that you can put your stamp on and that other people within the organization can see. I think one of the most powerful ways of creating power today is by doing, it's either through code or media. So within an organization, how do you create something that can scale and other people can see? I mean, as a simple example, it's a dumb example, but within, I remember I worked for a company called Singapore Press Holdings, and I used to make these really great PowerPoint presentations, and I made this like combination of all these PowerPoint presentations, and I sent it to somebody, and then they sent it around the entire office in Singapore because they want to create compelling PowerPoint decks that I was creating. And so it was the ability to share something that was more viral, do something that was viral, create a product that was viral. And, I started to build a name for myself for really nice, aesthetically designed PowerPoint decks.
What is IP for those who don't know?
Sorry. Yeah. IP is intellectual property. It's, it sounds very techie, intellectual property, but it's like, to me, it's really about what is that thing that you are doing within an organization that is uniquely yours. Now, at the end of the day, IP can be, maybe at the end of the day, the company or organization owns that particular IP in a legal sense, but the company essentially can't do anything without you as part of it. They can't do anything without your voice, your personality, your likeness, your ideas, your knowledge on top of that particular asset. So that's really what IP is.
IP is, yes, awesome. But I believe, that I've always had this belief that everyone on earth have to have an IP. I mean, you can't, like you said in your book, that the ideas, the ones who have got, the bold ones who have gone ahead of us, have left us bread, crumbs and ideas and little things for us to be able to take a clue from. And I believe that as the mandate we have here on earth is to ensure that, when we have left, there's some IP that people can hold on to and be able to grow or make changes or make impact in the world. So I've always a strong believer of having individual, even if you're an organization, you must ensure that something you have to, people should be here, people should know that you came here. And I think as we begin to think about it, it helps us to begin to see, ourselves as people who are here on an assignment, and that, we must, as much as you do for your job, and make sure you create, even if your job, your employer, decides to keep those IP and all of that, but you must intentionally begin to create the things that are outside. Like, I mean, look at what you've done. Yeah, go ahead.
Man, I want to riff on this, for a little bit, because, you talked about something really important. And if we have this belief that creators are going to be the next set of founders and entrepreneurs over the next 10, 20 years, and it makes sense because they have distribution, they have attention, and they are going to be the next big, upstarts, startups, and incumbent companies. So if you think that creators are the future when it comes to entrepreneurship, then you have to also believe that creators are the future within organizations. The people within organizations that can be able to sell their ideas, to execute on their ideas, to garner momentum and influence and get people on their journey within an organizations. These are the next leaders within organizations. They are the creators. And so outside of organizations, inside the organizations, the creators are the most powerful entities in the world today.
And I think it's important that they embrace it. Like, they have to understand that, because you see these people in organizations, they are the ones who bring the ideas. They are the ones who ask the questions. They are the ones who want to change something about something. And oftentimes they tend to shy away from me, like, oh no, I'm not a creator, or I just do my thing. But sometimes, if we begin to pay attention to it, that's actually the future of the organization. And like you said, leaders have to begin to identify those people and harness whatever they're sharing to help the organization grow. Because for me, it's very important, because I see a lot of people who say, I have this idea, I do this organization, but it's not recognized and it's put on the side. So I'm not going to be doing any more. I'm just going to be on my own. But I think it's important that they have to realize that this is who they are, and they have to keep finding ways. And sometimes it might mean that they might have to move to somewhere else. But
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So, this book is really about how are you part of the creator economy within an organization? How do you do that? And I don't think anybody on the planet has really written this and really framed that, this is how you go about it.
Yeah. I mean, I was involved in a project recently at work, and it was something that was, it's been kept in the back burner, and some people have come on it and they couldn't finish it. But when they came in, they said, it was an email that went out, say, hey, who is willing to take on this? And I said, because I understand that, to be able to create your own IP or to be indispensable, you have to be at the forefront of taking this stuff that are difficult, or doing the hard stuff, or putting yourself out there, right? And I took it on. Now, if and I launched it and implemented it, and now it's running within the organization. But when you go back and say, how was this done? You're going to mention my name, like, because my name was on that whole project. So I think it's important that, we begin to share more of these, that people, you can create within an organization. You can be a creator and be a part. You don't have to be a leader or CEO or a manager.
100%.
You can, even from the ground level, start doing that.
Love it, man. We're on the same wavelength. I love this conversation. You've actually helped me untap, many things and articulate it in a way that I've never articulated before. So I really appreciate it.
Great. Let's talk about cultural capital. I mean, I listened to one of your talks, and you talked about this cultural capital, and I, for one, saw it as social capital. But when you come from the standpoint of cultural capital, it clicked. But I want you to talk about, share a little bit about it again, because I think it's important in this new age that we're going into, the attention economy. Talk to us about cultural capital. How can you build that, within the organization and outside the organization?
Well, when we think about disruptors, we always think about the technological disruptors, the organizations that use technology as their moat, as their competitive advantage. But what I believe, as technology is becoming increasingly more commoditized, and technology is becoming disrupted by even artificial intelligence. If you've seen the latest developments in like Chat GPT and all. Like tech is going to be increasingly more commoditized. So at the end of the day, what's going to be the next set of disruptors? Well, to me, it's the organizations, it's the individuals, it's the brands that has an understanding of culture, of where the world is going. So it could be around culture, could be around the community that you build. Culture could be around creators and the people that are really on the forefront, on the cutting edge of who people are watching and consuming. It could be around crypto. These new sort of communities coming through crypto. It could, there's so many ways of looking at culture. To me, culture is really about, what is relevant today. And the next set of disruptors are the ones that are constantly seeing where the puck is moving in terms of culture. So if I look at cultural disruptors today, I look at a company like, Barstool Sports. Now, Barstool Sports, many people will, think that it's for frat boys or whatnot. I don't particularly follow Barstool, but they have a rabid community of people that love their content. They're unapologetic, led by a guy named Dave Portnoy, and he's unapologetic. He is the stereotypical, just like, Renaissance man. Like he's unequivocally just and unapologetically just brash. And I think that's what the brand is all about. And because of his personality and because of the people that they've hired, they've been able to garner what I call cultural capital, which is the ability to understand what is relevant today. And in some ways, they help shape that as well. If I look at an organization like, even like what Kardashians have done with and Kim has done with Skims, right? She's always understanding the reason why she has been relevant for the last decade is not only because of her show, but it's because of all the things that she touches. She has a design aesthetic capability and understanding, and that's what she's been able to create game-changing products like Skims and whatever else. Like she not only understands what people want, but she also helps shape it as well. And so if you see the leading companies today, they are all like there's a like a power ranking of direct-to-consumer companies. This guy 2PM they pulled together, and if you look at all the top power rankings of companies that are really the brands that are shaping the world today, they are cultural disruptors, like the Skims of the world, or Rihanna's, Savage Fenty brand, or Barstool. These are cultural disruptors.
And when you were talking, because I know there's always this thing within the organization where they do cultural fit, but I see this cultural capital as more of a cultural ad, because these are people who understand the culture, but they're not afraid to add to the culture because they understand that what they bring is something that is unique. So rather than we focus on how we can fit into the culture, oftentimes we also have to think about how can we add to the culture, because sometimes people tend to always want to find people who look like them, but how can you begin to look at how else can I add to this culture? Like, what can I bring? So rather than cultural fit, we are looking at cultural add. And I think that's where we're going today, where organizations are not just looking for people who fit into their culture, but people who are going to add to the culture. Like, what is we going to bring, right? So I just wanted to share that because, as we develop ourselves, professionally and personally, we must embrace who we are and how we can also add to the culture. I mean, you can see someone who comes into a particular organization, and because of them, they started to launch and learn, for example. And that's just because that has been the way they have seen, growth within teams, and they feel that's how they, would add to the organization. So I wanted to just share that based on, the culture capital piece there. I wanted to talk about something that I highlighted in your book here. I just want you to touch a little bit about it. He said, no longer individuals attaching themselves to companies attaching themselves to individuals. What do you mean?
Yeah. So there's this great power shift that's happening from companies, from institutions to individuals. And I believe that the individual is becoming the most powerful entity in the world. You know, we trust people, trust people. People care for people. If you look at any poll, Gallup polls, institutional trust in media, trust in institutions, trust in government is at an all-time low. But if you look at who people are trusting today, it really comes back to individuals. So if you look at how companies or how people hire services or how they buy products, it's going to be increasingly shifted, or it's going to increasingly shift to individuals. So if you want to work with a particular consulting company, you might look at the particular consultants and say, I want to work with these particular individuals. If you buy a particular brand, you might say, well, I have affinity towards the founder, or I have affinity towards other people within that company that work there, or other people that have bought that, that product or service. So I think that we buy from individuals, we trust individuals, and companies have to start understanding that their most important asset at the end of the day is individuals, because those are the people that ultimately have eyeballs and trust. So this is a seismic shift in how we look at trust, how we look at companies and systems altogether. And so over the next number of years, you're going to see this play out, and you're already seeing it play out. This is really the reason why the creator economy is here. It's the reason why you have, crypto. It's the power to one. This is the reason why there are media companies that are getting disrupted by individuals. Why you have things like Substacks and Patreons and all these different platforms that are incentivizing individuals to go off and do their thing. So it's a massive seismic shift that's happening in the world.
Yeah. And I think it's important that, individuals, because for me, I always try to shift, conversations back to the person, because as much as organizations are going to be looking at leveraging the individuals within the organizations, individuals have to begin to leverage the power that they have. And I'm not saying power to become a rebel, but a power to know what they're worth and make a demand on it, right?
For so many years, and I think it was because of the Industrial Revolution, we treated people like cattle. We stamp them with a number on their back, and we say, go work on the line. And that era is done. It's over. And now we have to empower individuals, and individuals have to understand themselves that you have more power than ever before. And because of media, because of code. And again, that we're moving into a different era when it comes to work, and people have to understand that this is in order to move up the ladder within an organization, in order to create a company, you have to be able to understand that you can create your own power today. You don't have to be a number.
Great. Let's talk about the bold ones. Now, if someone is to unpack this book, I know you cannot, but what would you say? I want them to hear it from the author himself. What would you say is the quality that you have to develop to become one? The most important quality you have to develop to become that one.
Woo! The most important quality become the bold one. This is the first time I've gotten this question for this book, because in the book I talk about the idea that the bold ones, you can be a bold one in so many different ways. But to me, if I would dial it back to one thing, I would say this, that I believe that the most dangerous person in the room is the person who's most afraid, but bold enough to move forward. It's the idea that the bold ones are not necessarily the people that are confident. They're walking into a situation and they know all the answers, but it's the person that's just willing to step forward even though they are still afraid. And to me, that's the most dangerous person in the room. So the boldest person is the person that can step forward even if there's a fire. That's what I would say is the characteristic. You have to continue moving no matter what.
I like the way you put it, because someone will look at the bold one and say, oh, it's too much pressure or it's too much work. But now you're making it, known to us that the bold one doesn't have to be the one who has it all and figured out, like, but willing to take the step, is willing I like this phrase called the education of the road, where I don't know it all, but I'm willing to go along the way, and then figure it out. And because once we begin to put that have the perspective, it takes off the pressure. Because oftentimes people just, oh, I don't think I'm bold. I don't think I can do this. It's too many, there's too much involved. But if you understand that, number one, you are called to be the bold one. Like, I mean, and creation, I always go back to the creation. He said, and this is the scriptures, for those who are Christians, they understand that you're here to have dominion.
Yeah.
That's the mandate. You're here to be fruitful, and to do that, you have to be the one who is willing to look like you. I think you mentioned in your book that to be the one that looks funny, or that asks the question that sounds silly or something like that, right? But not being afraid to ask the question regardless, right? So it's I mean, I have a lot to unpack in this book, and I definitely will write something about it. But before you go, I'd like to ask my guests 3 questions. We call it the final 3.
Yes.
You can answer in one word, or you can expatiate on that word. The first question there is, what is one change you had to make 5 years ago that is still serving you today?
The one change that I made was the idea of understanding that the power of waste. It's the idea of being okay with exploring, with wasting your time, with wasting your efforts on something that many people might think as inefficient, or many people might think as potentially just like you're on the wrong path. But when we start wasting what many people call wasting your time, I actually call it exploring and playing. And so I believe in the idea of embracing waste. And that just means just exploration.
That's your next book, The Power of Waste. That's a powerful title. Wow. Great. The second question is, what is something that is critically important to your personal growth, or that's critically important to personal growth that most people ignore?
I think most people ignore the idea of telling better stories, better narratives. You can have a really great idea. You can have a really great product. You can really be a great person at the end of the day. But if you can't get other people to understand it, to see it, to feel it, then it's dead on arrival. And so I think one of the things that we fail to understand is that in order to grow, we have to also be able to sell that growth or influence others to see that growth as well. It's not just enough to just grow yourself. You have to be able to sell it as well, which is something that might be controversial, but I think sometimes we get caught up with the idea that the product is just enough, or that we're just enough, or no, you're not just you have to be able to sell yourself, and you have to be able to tell stories and narratives around what you are doing, especially in this busy, noisy world.
Yeah, that kind of affirms the thing. I often say that not all good works can speak for itself. Like you have to be able to speak for your good works, and speak it in such a way that it's memorable and it's impactful. And yeah, that's very key. The last question, and this might be personal, is when you got this invite to this podcast, what was the thing that stood out for you that say you must be here? I know you're the person who is given to you're driven by adding value, and I've observed that from you from afar. But what is one thing that drew you to accepting this, to be on the show?
It's a very simple answer, and it's you. I think you are somebody that is going to win I want to be associated with people that are inspiring, that are pushing themselves, that are doing things that are outside of their comfort zone. And the fact that we had to rearrange this and you hustled to make it happen, the fact that you texted me for the bio or the picture, like I knew that you were a person that, put a lot of love into their craft. And of course, I listened to the podcast, and, I know you're someone that has put in the love around the intros and the notes and stuff like that. And I just love seeing people that are just passionate about what they're doing. So the short answer is you. So thank you for all that you do, not only for this particular episode, but for all the episodes, and the fact that you are providing value for your audience. It's amazing.
Great, good to hear that from Shawn. It's would I say it is not rewarding, but it's something that I can hold on to and say, yes, this is making sense. And I mean, I must say, Shawn, I've observed. I'm a person who observes. People say you like to use the word observe. I'm like, yes. I mean, I'm a student of observation, and I think in this day and age, it's so distracting. There's so much going on that people are not observing, and people are waiting until they have an institution or a formal system to learn before they begin to learn. But oftentimes, if we can pay attention enough, we can even learn by just observing. And I've observed you for a while, but I wanted to just ask this question out of random: is what is that one thing that has stood you out as someone who, because I think you're really playing in a very an important space in this day and age, but also on a space that will be highly criticized in terms of the ideas that the bold ideas that you share. So how do you stay true to your message despite sometimes the pushback that you get?
I think it's just leaning into who you are. It's leaning into your authenticity and what you believe and your particular ideas. To me, if you lean back into what you believe in your ideas and your experiences and what you're seeing, it's very difficult to challenge. But I actually, you should be open to the challenge too. You should be open to people. You should be open to the criticism, because it will ultimately make you better. But I have over the years just tried to lean more into what I love and to be my true authentic self. And this book is the truest form of Shawn Kanungo. It is my mind. It is hip hop, it's sports, it's pop culture, it's inspiration, it's business, it's tactical ideas, it's stand-up comedy. It's everything that I love into this book. And this is like the most authentic version of my mind. And so that's why I want to create this book, because it's a very different format than what I normally put out in terms of my content or my keynotes. This is it. And I think leaning more into who you are is super important.
Super important. Great. That's a great way to end this show. Thank you so much, Shawn. It's a privilege to have you on the show. I mean, when I sent you that first message and you responded, I mean, I was blown away, because not just the fact that the humility in the response, I mean, that shows you true to who you are. And I'm grateful to have you on the show today. And hopefully, because there's a lot to unpack. I just had to just, put this in 1 hour. There's a lot I want to ask, I want to talk about. But I hope that, the next time I'm going to give you an invitation again, that you'll be able to,
listen,
make a time for us.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, if you've gotten this far in this podcast, rate, review, follow, subscribe to this man, because he's putting in the work. And you should appreciate the fact that he's having all these amazing guests on, having in these unbelievable conversations. So follow him. And then once you finish that, then you can find me somewhere. Just find me online anywhere. And but first follow him.
Great, great. I mean, we're gonna have, but before I think we're gonna have a show. We have a show note where I'm gonna pull all of your online stuff. You know, your website, your LinkedIn page, any program that I find that you're running is gonna be on the show notes. But to wrap it up, how best can the audience find you?
Yeah, so you can find me anywhere: LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere. You can go to my website, you can contact me. I respond to every single human, because anybody that has reached out and taken the time to do that, I have a lot of respect for you. So yeah, you can reach out to me anytime, anywhere.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Shawn. I'm so grateful, and yeah, keep doing what you do. This book is powerful. This is going to be the first. You're going to be the first author. Yeah, let me think. Yeah, you're going to be the first author on Grow His Personal podcast, and not just the first author that have their book. It's exciting. A beautiful cover, speaks true to who you are, and yeah, I can't wait to finish this book. So thank you
I
for
love
all
it.
you do, especially in Canada, because I think
Yes.
that your kind are rare. So
Oh, I
thank you.
appreciate that. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.